Welcome back to the Whiskey Rocks podcast. This is Joel here with my best friend Chris.
Hey there.
Hey Chris, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
It's great. It's my daughter's 10th birthday. It's a Friday. The sun is shining. We've got a special guest here with us today. We are here with Al Laws out of Laws Whiskey House. Hello, Al.
Hello. Thanks, guys.
Man,
thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Al.
You bet. Thanks for being here. We're excited to talk to you about the journey that has been Laws Whiskey House, right? And get into the brand a little bit more with our listeners. If you're a first-time listener to this show, thanks for being here. If you are a repeat listener, I don't know what's wrong with you, but thanks for being here as well. You know, we appreciate the support. Speaking of support, a lot of you have reached out to us asking us how they can get, a shirt or something like that. Chris and I stood up a TeePublic site. We'll put the link in the show notes if you haven't seen it, where you can pick up T-shirts or sweatshirts or tank tops or I don't know. There's a lot of stuff on there, so go have fun. That support helps us keep the show going, so we appreciate it. That's for sure. So once again, thanks for being here and thanks for all your support so far. Chris, any news on your end? Anything you want to share with the audience real quick?
Just that one of the clubs I help run, we're doing a Frey Ranch barrel pick coming up June 1st.
Oh, very cool.
Some of us are traveling there. I am not. We're doing a virtual tasting at the same time with samples are already in town, so that should be fun.
Nice.
How about you?
I did a store pick last night with Burlington Wine and Spirits. We did their annual Weller pick out there. So as part of that tasting committee last night, that was fun. We actually just had our Copper and Cask barrel pick dropped last week and it sold out in 3 hours. So they invited us to come back and do another one next month, which will be pretty fun.
Did you get a bottle of that?
I did. I got 2 bottles of that. So we'll try that out when you're here next month for sure. It's a spicy tuna, man. It's like 136 per 7-year bourbon. So got some heat to it.
I like it.
What about you, Al? Any news that you want to share with the audience real quick?
Well, we were just launching our bonded series for the year. So we have a 7-year-old 4-grain bourbon. That's bottle and bond,
nice.
As well as a San Luis Valley 7-year-old rye. And one of my favorites for the summer, which is the Centennial Wheat, 100% wheat whiskey at 7 years old as well. So it's our lineup coming into the summer.
Oh, that's fun. That's nice. Fun.
And
you
guys talk about music. So I'm presently in Las Vegas. I'm going to see Pearl Jam tomorrow.
Oh,
we're huge Pearl Jam fans.
Yeah,
huge Pearl Jam fans.
They're not playing the Sphere though, are they?
They are not. They're playing the place where the Golden Knights play.
Okay.
Oh, that's awesome. So you said you're going 4 times this year, Al?
Yeah, I'm going to Seattle in a couple weeks, and then I'm going to Chicago and then Baltimore.
Oh, good for you. Good for you.
We
actually.
I was thinking about going to one of the Wrigley shows. There's a Wrigley show, I think, on Saturday night. Yeah. I was thinking about going to that one. But I was at the first Wrigley show back in 2013, which had like a 2.5-hour rain delay, and they let out at like 2 a.m. and dumped you. Like it was kind of a nightmare being like stuck in Wrigleyville at 2 a.m. with no car and trying to get on public transportation, and it was fun.
Oh man, well that sounds fun, Al. I'm really jealous. They're a great show, obviously, for sure, and hearing some of their new stuff off of Dark Matter should be fun too, right?
It's really good.
That's a fun. Yeah, it's a fun album. Really, it's a fun album. We did an episode, I don't know, a couple weeks back. We talked a little bit more about Pearl Jam, and actually we paired them with wheat whiskey. So speaking of wheat, your Centennial wheat whiskey, we did. It was called Jam and Bread, right? It was the episode we talked wheat whiskey and Pearl Jam. We thought it was a nice little pairing. So anyhow, great to hear that the bonded series is on its way. We'll get more into that for sure later on. But we like to start off our episode with some stories you might have missed. All right. First one is out of the music world. Let's talk about this one. It just made me laugh when I was scrolling through the feed the other day. There was an interview going on with Bono out of U2. And Bono says in this interview, just basically says Coldplay is not a rock band. Coldplay is not a rock band, which was kind of a weird statement to say. I think he followed up with a statement, and I think it was like he realized, ooh, maybe I said something that I shouldn't have said, because he said there's something much more interesting going on there. So, anyways, interesting is a fun word to use. I thought it'd be fun for us to just kind of break that down a little bit. First off, do we all think Coldplay is a rock band? What do you think, Chris? Yay or nay?
I would say they are. I mean, they play instruments, right? Like they're on stage rocking out.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's my style of music, because it's not. I'm not a Coldplay fan, but I had to categorize them as a style. Like rock is very broad, so I would say yes, they would fall into the rock
What do you
category.
Think, Al?
Yeah.
What do you think, Al? Do you consider?
I don't mind them. I think they're more performers than
right.
Like, they set out to do that. Like they set out to be that rock band. It seemed less organic to me.
Yeah, I can give you that for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've never really been a Coldplay fan. I think I've made that probably pretty clear on some episodes in the past.
And you like Bono?
I mean,
a lot.
Oh God. And that's the other thing about the story is like Bono has always just been one of those people that bothers me, and like he's just one of those people that bothers me. We did an episode on YouTube, gosh, a long time ago, but it was, I definitely had my opinions in that episode. I think the bigger question that this article interview made me kind of ponder was Bono talking about Coldplay. Does anybody really care at all? You know what I mean?
Coldplay fans do.
I guess they do. I mean, it's like it was so weird to see in my news feed. I'm like, this is 2024, right? And I went to the article. I was like, yeah, this was this last week. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's. Anyways, I guess they're still kicking. U2 and Coldplay. So
got to keep recycling stuff and trying to create controversy. So that's.
Yeah. I think that might be a part of it. I think U2 needed. Yeah, for sure. Another story I thought was pretty interesting that I saw this week out of the spirits, alcohol world was a study that came out of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology as well as Georgia Tech. And the study was recycled beer can remove lead from water. Which is pretty interesting. This breakthrough builds on the 2021 research that a year's worth of discarded beer from a sole brewery could treat Boston's entire water supply. So what that made me want to ask you, Al, is are you guys working on like some whiskey that can prevent cavities or something?
Oh, man. That's a hard question out of the gate. I'll tell you one thing we do is that we separate our liquid waste. So we make sour mash whiskey. Okay. So we're going to separate. We're going to use the liquid for the sour mash process, the backset, and in all the whiskeys that we make. But then we separate that further, and the liquid actually goes. We take it over by tanker to a waste treatment plant, Platte River Renew, which is a couple miles from us, and they use the concentrated liquid waste with what's in it. Plus, we put the heads back into that mixture. And they use it in a particular part of the waste treatment process, which is like in the denitrification process. Now, if I was a scientist, I'd go into it further, but I'm not, so I won't try to go further than that. But they did a pilot with us for 3 years, and it turned out the results were really good. So now they're out canvassing a bunch of our peers to collect the same thing. To again, it saves them a bunch of money on things like methanol and things that they use in the process. So similar to that, that's kind of like a thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think the scientific term is it just works.
It just works.
It just works.
It just works.
They did the pilot and they found out that it just works, and that was great.
No, that is really cool. So it's an interesting study, and I mean, I guess what they're looking at next is they're trying to brew up a concept to modify faucet water in homes to be able to kind of do this in more households and things of that nature, because obviously Boston has a lot of beer, and that's really what Boston's got to know for. So interesting way of kind of approaching things and see what happens. I mean, if there's a way to use beer yeast to purify water, I don't think there's anything, that's something I'll drink to. I'll drink to that. Right. Cheers. Yeah. I'll drink to that for sure.
Joel, I think
cleaner water
is a regression back to the 1900s where everyone drank beer because the water wasn't good. So
there you go.
I think this is a good trend.
There you go. I like the trend. Well, anyhow, that's this week's stories you might have missed. All right. And here we are into the main event, folks. Al Laws, president, founder, Laws Whiskey House. Thanks for being here once again. Really excited of course, really excited to talk to you. Big fan of a lot of the things you guys have going on out there. And so your background, it's not like you grew up in a rick house. It's not like you were born in a rick house, right? Let's start there. Let's start like what got you into whiskey? What brought you along this journey, Al?
So I love whiskey, so I could say that, and I could say, I'm passionate about
Cheers.
it. And you'd say, okay, we all are. So I would take another level. I'm obsessed with it. So I've liked it since I was 16. I grew up in Canada, so let's not get. I say this all the time. It's my warning. It's like, hey, a little more liberal up there. 18 years old, drinking age, and then when I grew up, 16 wasn't bad either. So
got it.
So I don't really I'm not a big beer fan. I will drink it, and since I've learned a lot about it living in Colorado for the last 15 years, because it's like a beer
imagine. Right.
Yeah. So we're more sophisticated environment for this. I'm sure Boston's very similar to that. But I liked whiskey. Don't like wine, so it was my thing. And Jack Daniels, Forester were my two kind of favorites, and Wild Turkey were the third. It's what I kind of grew up drinking, and so when I got older, it continued, but it started to be like, let's investigate something and try other things. You're like, wow, there's so many. And when I moved to the United States, like 24 years ago or whatever, like the selection of bourbon is way higher here than it is in Canada. Even today.
Totally.
And so it was like an interesting thing for me to like, what are all these things? And given that I was, enlightened by it already, I dove in. And so I'd buy a different one every week. And soon that pattern involved, you didn't finish the other one. So that's builds into kind of a collection of sorts.
I've been there.
So I can see
Chris knows that feeling.
Don't know anything about that.
Not at all.
So that's how it built. So at one point I had maybe 600 different whiskeys, maybe closer to 700 in the house. And that was the library, right? That was, before COVID. And then COVID definitely was we'll just say it was a time to liquidate.
Okay, got it.
So, those, drinking by yourself in the dark, the thing you can't ever replace.
Exactly.
But so whiskey was very important to me, still is something I'm obsessed about. And it became a part where what I was doing. And I always had this great thing where everything that I ever worked at, I loved what I did. And so, but I was getting older and I couldn't work 60, 80 hours a week on oil and gas finance. And I'm like, I need to do something different. And this was like the idea that I came up with and my wife bought in. So that was the most important step in all that.
I was about to say, my goodness. Tell me how you did that, please.
Convincing her to, basically spend all your life savings into this was actually easier than I thought it would be. And because she's, she sees it and she's finance person too, and she's a MBA and accountant, and she like added that value from the very beginning. So
this is my wife you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding.
She's like, let's do this. So, and she's probably less enthusiastic about it today after almost coming up on 14 years here, because it's hard work, right? Everyone looks at the glamour of it, and it's actually really hard work, and it continues to be hard work. And I don't think that ever goes away. And anyone at the larger, big distilleries would probably say the same thing. It just never really gets easier. But, we got into it that way. And at one point I'm like, well, can I do this? So I'm really good at financial modeling and all that kind of stuff. So I built, business plan and model around this. Like, okay, well, what would it look like? And then we happened to move or get relocated to Denver from New York City. And you got to see the very first one in existence, right? Stranahan's is down the street from us. And there's your first craft whiskey distillery, making single malt way before its time. And I'm like, how they're doing this. So that was the thing that pushed us over the edge to really dive in and move on. So we looked at, before that, I'd read every book under the rainbow, and there's way more books today than there were back, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was,
Yep.
I'm a research analyst. So that's my natural tendency. I just read everything.
Right.
So I had
read
a
it
lot of
all.
technical knowledge and a lot of background knowledge, but I'd add this, is that we, near the end of that in late 2000, or no, mid 2009, we went to Kentucky to see how it's done in large format.
Yep.
And this is before anyone cared about whiskey too, right? So it's like not like today, like all the bottles you have behind you today, you probably could buy, any day of the week on the shelf. And now everything's allocated and you can't find it.
Right.
So we went there to see it, and we went to a bunch of places and we met some folks, even from local people who said, oh, well, we're staying in your bed and breakfast, and oh, you should meet this person over at Old Tom, which is Barton's now, right? And she's, oh, well, they're closed, but Pam will take you around, and she's had a PR, and so we met a few folks and told them what we were planning to do, and eventually Pam said, well, you need to talk to Bill Friel, who used to run this place, and he'd done it for like 40 years, right? Been a distiller. He's a master distiller. He's in the Bourbon Hall of Fame in Kentucky. So we met him one of those afternoons.
Yep.
And then, a 30-minute thing of going to meet him, have a beer, turned into 3 hours. And he got engaged enough to say, hey, listen, son, if you're going to do this right, I might, I'm retired and not too interested in working anymore, but I would help you out. And this is my consulting kind of fees. And so we engaged him on that. And that was one of the best things that ever happened to us in this, because there's the last little piece of the puzzle in making whiskey. So you can look at technical manuals, and how to make a mash, how to do this, but all the magic comes in the soul, right? And the soul comes from things that that can't be written in a book. And
right. So
I tell a story a lot. Like the very first spirit run we ever did, where we're rolling, temperature's going up, it starts to converge and it breaks through and starts to flow. Obviously, methanol, aldehyde, all these things, terrible, and then it gets sweet. And you're like, okay, well, now what do I do? You're like, okay. And then you look at Bill and you go, okay, Bill, where do I make this cut? He just said, listen, son, it's your own goddamn whiskey. Make your own goddamn cuts. And I tell that story a lot. And then you're like, what? I'm like, yeah, well, that's how I'm like, what are you talking about? No, that's really funny. He's like, no, you're going to discover this yourself. This is how you have to do it. This is the soul in what you're doing. And so I went back to my calculator and said, I'm going to make a 5% head cut, and did it by that. And that was not the way to do it, but that's how I started doing it. And then I just kind of reeled it back and kept all the, the heads cut series and said, okay, here's where I like it the best. And that's like 3.5% of total alcohol produced. And then I started to develop what the flavors were around that, and the esters and things that were the signatures for me. But I first started with numbers and what I knew, right? And but that was where the soul came into the whiskey.
That's great.
That's awesome. I mean, Bill Friel, obviously, wow, what a person to just have you,
wonderful guy,
take along that journey, right? Yeah. Just an amazing person to learn a lot of that from, especially when you consider just his background and everything that he's done in the whiskey world. So really cool, chemist, really cool stuff. So
done everything. He even did HR. He said at one point. So
those old timers had to do a little bit of
it all.
Yeah, those distilleries.
Right.
That's
right. They were doing it all.
Yeah. And I've been in
it's great.
Dive in. We wanted to add to the fabric of American whiskey in a different way. So I love wheated bourbons.
Let's talk about that.
I love rye bourbons. So we wanted to make something different. So I'm like, why couldn't we make something that had all 4 American mother grains in every sip? So why can't I make a 4-grain?
Right.
And there were a couple of them around at the time. Some of them not well aged and weren't particularly great. But the one that really triggered me in this was the Master's Reserve from Woodford Reserve. Those things they did. They still do them.
Yeah.
Back in 2005, they did a 4-grain, and I loved it because it was very grain forward.
Oh wow! Okay.
It was really rich, and because it came off those gooseneck stills. Like I'm a big proponent of pot stills, right? You can make great stuff off of all the column stills, and that's where most of it's made. But the pot still concentrates flavors and gives it different characteristics, and that's what I liked. And so the Woodford thing is what put me over that. Like I like grainy, I like the grain forward nature of whiskeys more so than the full on barrel influence. That's just my personal opinion. That's the whiskeys that we make. And once we decided on the 4 grain, that was going to, part of the fabric of the history of American whiskey. And we want to be part of that part of it and not try to do what everyone else is doing very well in Kentucky. Right. And then we added things like we just deconstructed the 4 grain into single grain whiskeys because whiskey is a product, is a value added farming product, basically from those grains. Grains matter. For us, grains are some of the most important part of it. What type of grain, varietal, where it's grown, who grows it, all those things matter. And so we started deconstructing.
For sure.
Rye whiskey, 100% rye whiskey, 100% wheat whiskey, obviously barley whiskey, malted barley and all that. And then we make a corn whiskey.
Yeah.
So we kind of broke it all apart and allow people to take that step with us. Okay, here's 5 different whiskeys, all made in the same way, all sour mash style. And here's what the grain brings to the table. It's kind of cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I mean, you guys are definitely grain forward, which is one of the things I really do like about your whiskey. You're not hiding from that real flavor that you're getting from the grain.
We're spending 2 to 3 times the commodity price on grains. So we're not afraid to pay a lot for the grains because there's particular varietals and they're not grown for yield, they're grown for flavor. And flavor is what whiskey's all about in my opinion.
Yeah. I always say flavor is king.
Well, flavor is king. That's something that we've always say. Yeah, exactly. And with what you guys are doing, it's all Colorado grains, right? Which is nice too. You're doing everything local from a couple different farms out there, right? So it's whiskey all part of the Colorado economy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. These things didn't exist when we started, right? And now we're DSP 24 in Colorado. And there's now like 120 of them. So it's a different, and Colorado's, has that base of, Bev Elk, expertise and that kind of stuff. So they go for that. But yeah, the Whiskey Sister Supply and the Cody Family Farm, Colorado Malting is where we get all our grains from.
Yeah. Great. And you're very terroir forward.
Yes.
And heirloom grain.
Mm-hmm. But also so let me run this by you. What I think is going to happen in American whiskey in the next 10, 20 years is it's going to become more like Scotland. So you all know, Speyside, Highlands, islands like Islay or Jura, Lowlands, like that's what America's going to be in whiskey. We've opened the genie is out of the bottle. And I
hope so.
Yeah. Right. Like we're not trying to taste like Kentucky. Why would we? It's already great. Something that's made there is awesome. We want to be different. Whiskey should taste or have elements of where it comes from.
Yeah. No, I
agree with that. I agree.
I would say, where do you see Colorado fitting into the picture there? Because you mentioned Stranahan's before with their single malts, and you guys have you do make a malt whiskey.
We do, yeah. We don't make it often though, and it isn't really. I wouldn't say it's one of our focuses. We have it, and we have some pretty well aged stuff. We'll put out a couple hundred cases of it this year. Just for I don't know, we do every couple of years we'll put out some more, but it really isn't where our like heart lies. Our heart lies in bourbon, which is my favorite thing in the world, rye, and then I really like what I think might become a thing is wheat, because everyone loves wheated bourbon. So 100% wheated or 100% wheat whiskey should, if it's well aged and made right, should start to carry the day, right? It should be something that can be in the mix.
Yeah, we're big fans of wheat whiskey.
We've said that. Yeah.
Thing with wheat,
Chris and I have said that a couple of times.
It takes a lot longer for wheat to develop, even in bourbon, in my opinion, than it does for rye. So wheated bourbon needs to be a little older than rye bourbon.
Yeah. So I always say wheated bourbons I'm like 50-50 on, like just depends on, what it is, like how it tastes. But I rarely ever drink a wheat whiskey where I dislike it. Like I usually love wheat whiskeys. Like they're just amazing to me.
We love our one this year.
Right.
Yeah.
So the best part about this year's is that we picked barrels on the basis. It has a very heavy orange backbone to it, like, burnt orange or that, like it's in there. It's from the grain, but it also has this sarsaparilla root beer thing to it, which I particularly like.
Yeah.
So that's a creamsicle thing. You put it on ice and then you have this little touch of sarsaparilla root beer. and you get the grains right up front, and it's got a cool bite to it. That's every summer. That's my favorite thing we put.
That sounds good.
I was drinking through the samples that we got sent this week, and I noticed that orange, like that orange zesty flavor, is a subtle note, and like it runs through all of them. It seems to me it does.
Yes.
I don't know if that's because of the still or your cuts, but it seems to be like a signature of yours. I noticed like that's a signature flavor, and
it is. It's even in the rye. I think it has to do with the grain interaction with the yeast. We're using American ale yeast, like pretty simplistic kind of thing. Does really good in attenuation. You know, it's what we like. We've tried others, and there's some pretty interesting yeast out there. Like we use what's it called M1, like a Scotch yeast, and it was vicious. It didn't leave any drop of sugar behind. I'll tell you that.
Wow.
It produced some different flavor notes, and in the malt whiskey it shows up. But yeah, I agree with you. That the bourbon is 20% wheat already. It's 60% corn, 20% wheat,
right,
10 rye, and 10 malt. And then wheat is obviously 100%, but even the rye has some of the orange notes for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to talk about some of your products real quick? I noticed I have two of your bottles. I have an experimental.
I can see it back there. Yeah.
This one is finished in ruby port casks.
Ooh.
Which was 2 years, like, I don't know. Yeah. I got this like 2 years ago, I think, a year or two ago. They don't sell it in Ohio. It's really hard to find your products in Ohio. But I think
we're not distributed in Ohio.
No,
not yet.
On the website, you do have a partner that can ship to Ohio. Because I saw you have like a burr rye. Oh, you have a burr rye finish in a rye barrel. I'm like, ooh, I think I got to get that one. And then your bonnet.
I had that.
So this one's a 6-year-old.
That one's super good. Yeah.
Yeah, we were noticing. Well, Joel, you had one last night. Was it? It was bonded, or was it cast strength?
Yeah. No, what I had last night was an 11-year single barrel that you guys did. Yeah. Oh, wow, it was delicious. Like it was my second favorite pour. It was my second favorite pour of the night, behind a 17-year bourbon. Right, like it was awesome. You know, like, and we had quite the lineup because we did that Weller pick, and then we had a little bottle share afterwards. But that 11-year single barrel was just like phenomenal, right? And I really like, yeah, it was, definitely not something that is too common. That's for sure. You guys were doing, so you're bonded it's 7 year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Your bonded series is 7 years. All right. Was it 8 years at one point? Were you guys doing 8 or was it
last year?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Right.
So
that's right. Yeah.
This is here. My analog to this is like, you know how Old Fitz does sometimes it's 8, sometimes it's 16 or whatever. Like, I like that as a geeky bourbon person. I'm like, I don't want it to be the same. I want them to, and we would say it this way. We have a null hypothesis going in after we taste a bunch of barrels. Like, this is what we're going to do this year. And let's find the barrels that do that. So this year we were like, hey, mostly the comments we get when people are like, yeah, you like it, but it's too dry. It's not as sweet as like Weller or something like that. I'm like, yeah, well, that's by design. But we do get a lot of those comments. We're like, screw it. Let's give someone what they want this year. Let's give them something that's different than what we normally put out. So this one's got kind of a caramel bomb on it, like right up front. But my favorite part of it is that it finishes like a sour mash bourbon, like how it rolls on your tongue. It just drives me crazy. I love it. Those are the two elements that we kind of worked on this year. It's a little bit smaller batch because we didn't have, we didn't want to, we didn't keep those other barrels, but it's different. So last year's was a big whiskey, closer to the 11 that you had, so more cherry notes in it and those kind of things that happen with like older age. This one is like brighter, and again, caramel, super sweet up front, which is again our characteristics of our bourbons are generally a little dry. So I hope you'll love it. I think it's releasing right now, like this week or
awesome.
I think the press release is coming. I edited it.
Well, I know the 8. I had the 8 year from last year, and it was awesome. And obviously Fred Minnick and a lot of people raved about it, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Minnick.
That was delicious. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, he's got a particular palate.
Well,
we totally respect his palate. Like when we were glad he does. Finally. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was really good. I'm excited to try out the 7-year for sure. I've noticed that like your products, the longer they're sitting in those barrels, man, they are delicious. Like they are delicious. You know, that 11-year last night was an eye opener.
Here's like a forward tip on this. So our 4-grain flagship is a blend of 100 barrels typically, and it's 3.5 to 4.5 years old. And that's what we like, because we want that bright kind of fruity notes and grain notes of like the stuff at 3.5-ish. And then we also put in a few like under 5%, but like of 10 or 12-year-old. So we added that a few years ago as another level. But as of this summer, we're going to just, again, we're just moving the bar higher on ourselves. So nothing will be below 4 years in it. We'll drop the age statement off the bottles. And the little bottles you guys got, I'd say minimum of 2. That's just because we had them screen printed, and that's the minimum thing. But everything that's in it is the same thing that's in like the weeded stuff you have there is like 5 or 6 years old. Oh, nice. And so is the malt. And so, you know, we're just trying to be more consistent with if you read the bottle and you don't get to talk to me and you don't know what's in it, then you have a better idea. But that's another little step forward. And we will still continue to put some 10, 12-year into it.
No, it's great. That's awesome. It's a good way of balancing things for sure. And now let's talk about the way you guys blend and distill, because you have what's called the village, right? You have what's called the village there at Law's Whiskey House, where there's no master distiller and things of that nature. So talk about that. Like that's a different concept, right? So what kind of brought that about?
Well, I'm Canadian, right? So I love hockey. So that's for the last month.
Okay.
My evenings are domated by watching many, many hockey games. So nice. And I'm a Bruins fan. So you know that's
hey,
we're hanging on,
We're hanging on.
Oilers are also hanging on. So we're but like so, growing up playing hockey and is a lot of these things are crucial to building teams, right? So from my point of view, it's like, well, the master distiller thing for someone who's even done it for 6-7 years, that's irrelevant. It's not real. Like when you talk about Bill, like 40 years of doing it and going through every aspect of it, that's a total different thing. So we have this explosion of people calling themselves this and this, and we don't believe in it in our culture. It's like, hey, there's a head distiller, but if you're running the equipment, you are sort of the master distiller that day. So we don't have any zombies on our floor who are just turning things and like don't care. Everyone cares deeply. And when they sit around the table in a production meeting and talk about, you know, what we made this week and, you know, what went wrong, what went right, what's interesting, they all have a voice. So to us, that creates the team and, you know,
cool.
Contributes to our, you know, some of our mantras, which is every day's a tryout and today's the best whiskey we ever made, because we care about all the things that happened before, and we continue to strive to, you know, up the ante on ourselves, raise the bar, if you will, and we don't take any shortcuts. So we're not interested in cutting the time down in producing this. We're interested in the integrity of the final product, and you know, I'm sure I'm not alone in this out there. There's a lot of very amazing, you know, independent distillers like ourselves, and so I appreciate that in the industry. More so than just trying to get a super volume and out and crank out. But that's how we created with the village, and the village stems beyond production into you know, sales, brand ambassadors. You know, you're part of this. Everything that happens to the company relates to some of these people, and they're all important.
No, it's so true though, and it's a good way of looking at things.
So does the village, or do they help with the blending aspect of those 100-barrel blends?
They're welcome to. We have one head blender, and then he has assistant that helps that. But then all of our packaging crew, which are, you know, they're dumping it right there, they're moving it through, and they're all open to participate too. So what we tend to do is say let's call it 100 barrels. We know what our core flavor profile is, so we're going to pick 65 to 75 barrels that meet that immediately. And that's not a hard task. Well, it's all a hard task. You got to go through like 250 barrels or so to do this. And you find those, like, here's the core. We know this tastes right. And then Head Blender is going to bring us a couple different versions, sometimes 3. And we'll go with like a peppery and dry, and then sweet and fruity. Those are the 2 general categories that we use. and he'll bring 2 versions, and they're labeled some 3-letter code, and it doesn't mean anything. It might mean something to him, but and then we all get to taste it, and anyone in the company is welcome to come in and try it as well. But we go through those and go, okay, well, what's the vote? Okay, here, and then you can taste it versus like prior batches. But often it isn't so much that we're going for, absolute uniformity. What we're trying to do is collectively make decisions to drift it a certain direction. So say we're going into the summer, maybe we want a little sweeter. In the fall, we might want a little drier. So we're going to make that choice, and we're going to say, this is what we're going to try to do. Which one meets that? And that's how it's done. So this takes a considerable amount of time, right? Like going through all those barrels is over a week.
Right.
And then picking them all and going through the batch creation is a lot. And then once we pick them, we get them in the tank. That's a lot, for us, not for big distilleries who've done this for 100 years and how much large, but like 100 barrels is quite a bit. So we get it in there, and then we got to cut it.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
Right. It'll be like 100. Our stuff casts like 116 to 119 is generally after 4 years is what it's at. And we goes in barrel entries 110. And in rye, we oscillate 105, 110 because 105 in rye after 4 years, it picks up a cool maple note. So we wanted some of that.
Nice.
But we'll go through all these barrels, we'll put them in the tank. Now we got to cut it. And so cutting to us is a methodical process that isn't like we would cut it off the still to go into barrels, which is you can do 50% at a time. Like, hey, the delta's 10, you cut 5, and then you cut 2.5. We don't do that. So we do only 2 points a day. So we'll drop it. Say it's 118 and we're trying to get to 95. It's going to be just 2 points a day. So that takes a bunch of time, right? And let it sit and integrate with those barrels that are just dumped into the tank, get to know each other, and then slowly bring it down.
Yeah. Now slow proofing.
Yeah, but before we would, so our cask strength isn't going to be a single barrel. It's going to come off of that.
Okay.
So it's going to be, say, 118. And that's the cask strength whiskey this year, B23 or was the batch, but it won Whiskey Magazine's world's best small batch. It beat,
congratulations.
It won the non-Kentucky category, and then it won the world category, which we were pretty proud of. And that's like, that's 3.5. Well, probably average age in there is like 4 years, but
should be proud of that. That's a great accomplishment.
Yeah. It was. We do really well in these things with rye, but bourbon we hadn't had that kind of a win before. But the cask at that level, you wouldn't know that it's even that high proof. So it's very delicate and doesn't burn, and it's a beautiful thing. The only problem we have with that is if you have one that cork breaks on you, let us know, because we had some bad corks. And it was in that batch.
So that's good to know. That's good to know.
Let us know. Don't just.
Let's talk about it.
Go ahead.
I would ask you a question about a specific barrel. That was barrel 666, right?
Yes.
Obviously, with us being a music show, I figured we should talk about barrel 666 out of there.
The barrel of the beast.
That was the barrel of the beast, right?
Yes.
So, what's the story behind that? I'm sure our fans will love to hear that story.
So, I pretty big. It's probably as big a music fan as you guys are, but I'm a pretty big music fan, and a lot of it comes from my formative years. And I love Iron Maiden. So I'm going to see them in October. I'm going to see them. I've seen them.
Awesome.
Oh,
I don't know, 8 or 9 times, and so they're all like 69 now. And I saw them maybe 2 years ago, and they still bring it. Like tickets, it still runs around the stage.
Nice.
He's still working out all the time, and it's a theatrical thing, right? So I'm like 66.
Oh, for sure.
Barrel the Beast. So I like dig through my records from way back when, and
oh, hang on, I think we lost you.
Peace of Mind picture disc from when I went to one of their concerts. So we like put a screw in the barrel and we put it on this, and it was the most photographed barrel ever for us. And we talked about how we were going to harvest it at 6 years, 6 months, 6 days. And then then the barrel itself went to this heavy metal brewery down the street. Our good friends there at True Brewing, and they put a stout in it, and they aged that out. And when they were done, we released it on June 6th, and we released it in conjunction with them. So they had their stout, and we did very similar labels, designed by one of the guy who designs their Sam, who designs their labels, and we released it. And we had 250 people lined up, and we sold out in 45 minutes, and they sold out in less time than that.
Of course, you did.
And we did it all in 375s to get more people access to it.
Oh, that's really cool.
It was super fun. And we see it. Yeah. It pops up a lot of places. We see it in someone's background. Like, how did you get that? He's I had to trade this for this and that. But the news is on Monday, this past Monday, we dropped Rye 666. So there's another one coming here in about 5 months, and it's delicious. So, and it'll be the same thing. I don't know what the yield's going to be yet, but it's not a lot. And the barrel has gone to True, I think, yesterday evening. So they already have the beer ready for it. Sometime this fall, you'll see some PR on that.
Very cool.
No, well, that's cool. We'll have to make our way out to Denver, Chris.
You should.
Yeah. And then try to get our hands on one.
So if it's 1666, 26, they also have picture discs on this. So the Rye one had Black Sabbath Mob Rules. Awesome. We got a Megadeth one. We got an Aussie one. I think we just ordered a Motorhead one. So, so all these things are just randomly in the racks, and it's sort of fun. So people see them like, "What's that?" I'm like, let us tell you about the Barrel of Beast. It's our
that's cool. That's fun.
It's a great name too.
Yeah, and that's awesome because it just gives you another story to tell, when you're talking to people, right? And that's really cool. That's really cool. I saw that Barrel of the Beast and was just like, I got to ask Al how they came up with that. That's so cool. But keep up that fun stuff,
Yeah, because it's
man.
So some salutes to music, and I've seen some of those out there. I'm like, that's great. And we have some good friends at their master blender at Blacken's good friend, and so we have some connections
nice.
on these things, and it's not our thing, but we do a little bit of this, so we can be involved. We just want to be involved,
right?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
No, totally. No, it's great. It's one of those things that it was just like perfect. I was like, we got to talk about that. I mean, here we are, rock and roll show with whiskey, and it's just perfect parallels there. Was that one of you? Did you just grow up a big Iron Maiden fan? Now were they big in Canada? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, they're big all over the world.
Yeah.
When I was like 10 or 12, my dad took my friend and I when we were 10. We saw Black Sabbath when we were 12. That kind of stuff, right? Yeah, we were all of that. Judas Priest, all that. That was the time.
Nice.
Then we moved into Motley Crue and Rat and all that kind of like. And then you just evolve. So Pearl Jam is probably my favorite band of all time. In fact, it is. But but I like all that era.
Me too.
That's what they're just so good. Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, like there's a lot of great stuff in there that I just totally love. And so not only I'll give you another story, and you probably don't care, but so when I turned 50, my daughter took me to Missoula to see Pearl Jam, and that was the first time she was like 19 or something then.
Yeah.
And so she's with me on this trip, and my son, who's never gone to see him, who's 21, she's 24. And so her and I have gone to like 6 shows together now.
That's awesome.
I created this. I got the new next generation into him.
Yeah.
We need it.
He's one of the faithful now.
Yes.
So what's your favorite Pearl Jam album? If you had to pick one. That's a hard question.
It's a hard question.
I like Biennial.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot. Yeah, I think that would be
my favorite's Yield. I like Yield a lot.
Yield is awesome. The second one was Versus, probably the most punch in the face one ever. So I was telling them even last night, talking about some of them have her boyfriends with us. This will be his second one. He's like, well, what about this? I'm like, well, when I was X age, when Versus came out, there was like riots at record stores. Record stores.
Right.
Then they go, record stores? What are
record
those?
stores? What's that? Right. Yeah.
Joel, what's your favorite one?
I go against the grain, and I'm a Vitalogy fan, man. Like I've always been. I really, I love Vitalogy, and I love 10. How can you not love 10? Right? It's a great album.
Have to love that one.
Vitalogy is always right. I mean, you have to love that one. What's funny though about records, kind of bringing this back to what we're talking about at the beginning of the show. My daughter is 10 years old, and she wanted a record player. for her birthday. So yeah, she got a record player. Of course, she wanted Taylor Swift albums, but yeah. So maybe there is
right.
Maybe there is hope for the future, right? I mean, it's I don't know. Music
so
today
here's a question.
It's interesting.
What's your first record you ever bought?
My first record.
Yeah.
That I ever bought. Actually, with my own money, it was the Black Album by Metallica.
Wow.
Yep. Black Album by Metallica. Yep. That
Wow.
was my first one that I ever bought. What about you? Can you remember what it was, Chris?
It was Born in the USA by Bruce Springsteen.
Beautiful.
Oh, nice. That one. Nice.
How about you?
For
Al?
me, I bought Rolling Stones Tattoo You.
Nice.
And Styx Paradise Theater. Those are my first two.
What a great combo. What a great combo right there. I love it. But real quick, back to Born in the USA. Let's talk about that real fast, because I know that a fun no, not about Bruce, but a fun fact about Al's.
I love Bruce.
And Law's whiskey is that you distilled your first batch on July 4th, right?
Oh yeah,
that's right.
2000, right. So, what? Let's talk about that real quick. Tell us about that
turned
story.
Out to be that we were trying to do it in mid-June, and the inlet valve for steam into our cooker was undersized, so we couldn't heat water up. So we had hey, Vendome, come on out here and cut us a bigger hole. So they flew out and re-welded it, and they were like, oh, well, we're ready. And it happened to be that weekend. And born on the 4th of July. So
born on the 4th of July. That's awesome.
I became an American citizen last year, June 28th last year. So
congratulations.
I'm very proud that it's born on the 4th of July. Turned out
that's cool. And it's cool. I mean, it's an American whiskey on America's birthday, and
that's right.
It's just kind of a cool
American stills, which is important too. We only use Vendome stills, and we don't polish them. People go, oh well, someone's so polished. Nah, this is a workhouse wine. This is an American whiskey still. It doesn't have to look pretty. It just puts out great stuff.
Nice.
That's all that matters, right? Flavor is king, as we were saying earlier, right? Flavor is king. Who cares about the pretty stuff? That's for sure. No, keep doing what you guys are doing. It's great. I mean, it's unique. It's you guys have such a unique flavor. Like you said earlier, you don't have to be like Kentucky. You don't have to be, and you're doing the right thing by being yourselves out there, right? Really, just keep that as fans of your stuff, just keep doing it, because it's good. It's good quality. It's it's affordable. It's not crazy. It's like you can go and enjoy a bottle. You don't have to get a second mortgage on your house to buy it. Which is
you can really tell the passion. You can really tell the passion on everything, but by the from your font and your bottle design and Art Deco-ness and flavor in the bottle. You can really tell that you have a passion and you really care. Yeah.
I'm glad you picked that up.
Yeah.
It is, and it's not just me. It's our village, and
care
deeply about what's in the bottle. It starts with what goes into the bottle. We don't put anything in that we don't think is extraordinary, and that view of extraordinary changes over time, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
As you get better, and we're not standing in front of you saying we're the best at this or that. We always learn, and we're always open for people's suggestions and try to take things into account. And we know where some of that stuff comes, and we make tweaks all the way along. So we're like, oh, well, let's try this. But there's always something behind it. Nothing happens by accident.
Right.
My suggestion, I know it was part of your experimental series, but that Boo Rye was awesome. I want another one of those. Boo Rye was so good. It was so good. But I had a bottle of that, and it was so good. I went through it, and I was very sad when I finished that bottle.
So this last 2 years, we spent some time with retailers for the most part, and showing them what blending can do. And so we did one for Speakeasy, the online fulfillment arm we have, and we did a bourbon and rye. We did 4 barrels of this, and the first one was released last fall, and it's bourbon and rye, and then it's been reintroduced to a used rye cask for 6 months, and then we put that out. And then the next one is the same bourbon and rye mix, 60-40, and it's it's double oaked. And I was a little nervous about that. And then I've seen some really great double oak stuff. Peerless did it really well. Both the rye and the bourbon, knocked it out of the park. And I'm like, well, we can do that too. And and so we've done that a few times. That's the next one coming in a few months. And then, but we've also convinced them to do like bourbon and wheat whiskey. And so our special release this fall is going to be called Super Wheater, and it's 4-grain bourbon blended with 100% of our 100% wheat whiskey. And so it jacks the wheat part of it. And the wheat whiskey is a little older than, it's probably like 6 years old, 7 maybe, and the bourbon's like 4. So
Super Wheater. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
And it's so American whiskey, just a blend of, but it's
yeah.
You'd be really surprised at how, you go 70-30 or 60-40 or like even 65-35, how dramatic the flavor profile changes. It's really interesting.
That's really cool. Well, keep experimenting because it's fun, and it's like we were talking to Trip Stimson out of Barrel a couple weeks ago. We love the innovation. Like we love it that when people are doing what you guys are doing and like pushing the boundaries of this stuff, because bourbon's great and whiskey's great, but like it's fun to try some different things with it.
No question.
Yeah, like keep doing that because like we need that. This is a spirit that's been around 200 something years. Let's keep making it fresh and doing different things. So
Barrel has really definitely defined. The Barrel has become the definition of like independent bottler, but in an American way, right? Like blending stuff. So independent bottling in Scotch is like been around forever, but I don't know, there's a lot to it. And like I said, we're not experts at that either, but we've been learning as we go. And we were pretty shocked. My favorite part of like blending stuff, even if you're just blending bourbon, your own bourbon, is you add barrel. It's like, oh, it needs to be a little hotter. It needs this. And you put in the hot barrels and it goes the other way. It becomes sweeter for some reason.
Weird.
So yes, it's super weird. Yeah. But it keeps it fun for us too. Like we like doing that stuff.
For sure. No, it's cool. Well, we like tasting it, so keep doing it for sure.
Love that.
We'd love to definitely. Yeah, I would definitely want to get my hands on that Super Wheater, something down the road, and taste that. But anything else you want the audience to know, Al? Anything else you want to make sure people are aware of or in the know on?
Well, we have a brand new brand experience tasting room that's 85% done. It'll be done here in July, I think. And when you come to Denver, come visit us. Have an experience of going through, learning about what we do, and learning. Even if you know a lot about whiskey, I pretty much guarantee you're going to learn something on our tour. And
that's fun.
If you have like questions that you come over and go, what about this? They're going to answer it. It's not going to be, it's proprietary. That's cool. No, we can tell you. We can take your education a little bit higher and then see our whiskeys used in cocktails and things like that, which we haven't had before.
That's cool.
More of a little bottle shop and stuff like that. But that's new for us. But no, we're stuck in this great cycle of we're interested in making things from the dirt. So we're dirt to glass, not just grain to glass. And where it's grown matters, varietals matter, all these things you can learn a little bit about in terms of flavors. And, it isn't just the varietal, it's where it's grown, who grows it, all these kind of things, the year. Like I know you can't use it in American whiskey vintage and all that, but vintage matters.
Right.
And every year our rye is different because it's the grain from that year. So it's those things are really important. I think that kind of experience especially if you're geeky and you're interested, you'll have a great time coming to Law's Whiskey House.
Well, I definitely am going to have to put that on my list. I haven't been to Denver in a while, but I need to get back out there because every time I go to Denver, I fall in love with Denver, and I'm like, why don't I just move here? It's such a great spot. Well, folks, make sure you check out the new tasting room at Law's Whiskey House if you're in the Denver area. If you are just at your bottle shop and you see Law's Whiskey, pick it up, try it. If you haven't tried it before, you're missing out, and you need to make sure to get it and try it and see what you think. But it's going to be a different experience. Like I was saying, it's not going to be like a Kentucky bourbon. It's a grain forward. It's got just a great flavor that's just going to come through in every sip. And make sure you're giving it a fair shot. Chris, anything else from your side?
Nothing. Just have a great weekend. Thank you, Al, for joining us. This was awesome talking to you. And you make amazing whiskeys. You and your team.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We love hearing that, and we love people. We love these kind of engagements. We get to chat. chat about whiskey in a long format, not in 5 minutes, but in an hour. Like, it's awesome.
Right.
And well, you guys, thank you for inviting me. And I love that you enjoy it. And I love that you have your number of bottles behind you because well, you got your library.
Yeah, he's got a real big.
It's 5 shelves. It's hard to see. Yeah. And then it goes over this
He's
way.
got a lot more than I do.
Oh wait,
I
have another wall there. That's like the Scotch, and then there's another wall there.
So I'm just waiting for my invite to come by.
Yeah, anytime you're in Cleveland, you're welcome to come.
Anytime. I love Cleveland.
So real quick, I started. I'm up to around 400 whiskeys, but I started my own whiskey club because I only drink socially. So I'm like, what am I ever going to do with all this whiskey? So I love the education. I love the history about it. I love learning about brands and just the stories. I love that, but mostly I love it that it brings people together. Like it's
community, right?
Yeah.
Community,
same thing with music.
To talk about it, it's the best. It's one of the best things I can ever in my whole life. Just engaging with people about whiskey over a glass of something and just talking about it. Yeah. My God, what a better day! Slow the world down. Turn your phone off.
Yeah, no. Chris has said it before. It's the best little magic trick, right? Because it gives you something to talk about to anybody. If you sit down next to someone and they're drinking a whiskey, you can just talk to them about it, right? And it's awesome. And we'd love to have you on again down the road, Al. And talk some more with you.
I would definitely come on.
That.
Super fun, guys.
We'd love to.
We'll talk more music too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I would love to. We can have a more music forward show, for sure. But that's it from our side. We appreciate you being here. Al, go enjoy Pearl Jam. All right.
Yeah, have a great time.
Thank you.
Have a great time. I am too. But thanks again, everyone, for listening. You can find our episode on Google Podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, basically anywhere you can listen to a podcast. You can find us. You can find our socials on TikTok, on Instagram. I know Laws Whiskey House is a great Instagram account. Make sure you're following that as well. And once again, thanks for all of your support and for listening again today. As always, whiskey rocks, sip hard.